Hi everybody, I'm Chris Wook from Android Authority, and today we're taking a look at the LG Spectrum 2. Now, recently LG's been getting into the higher end range of the smartphone market with its Optimus G and the Google Nexus 4, but for a long time its bread and butter was mid-range smartphones just like this one, and this is actually pretty solid. When I first heard that I was going to be taking a look at the LG Spectrum 2, I wasn't all that excited, but it's a surprisingly solid device. I'm actually enjoyed my time with it quite a bit. I'm sure you guys might want to know why, so let's get started with the review. The LG Spectrum 2 runs a 1.5 GHz dual-core Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 Crate processor and has 1 gig of RAM and 16 gigs of internal storage. The 4.7-inch 720p HD screen has a resolution of 1280 by 720 pixels, and like most other phones on the market, it's protected by Corning Gorilla Glass. The specs are rounded out by 8 and 1.3 megapixel rear and front cameras respectively, and a 2150 mAh battery. The build quality is very solid. While the Spectrum 2 isn't exactly heavy, it doesn't feel cheap or overly light like a lot of devices in this price range will. The few hardware buttons have nice action to them without feeling spongy or stiff. Things become much more subjective when it comes to the actual design. The Spectrum 2 shares the same rectangular shape as a lot of LG's recent devices, and while this may not be true for everyone, I like the design quite a bit. On top of the phone, we have the small rounded power button, which seems to be designed that way to somewhat match the 3.5mm headphone jack on the other side. The left side features the only other two hardware buttons, the volume up and down buttons, and further down we have the micro USB slot. On the back we have the 8 megapixel rear camera and flash, and the LG branding. Further down we have the speaker and 4G LTE logo. If you take off the cover you'll find the battery, SIM card, and micro SD slot. Finally, on the front of the device, we have the Verizon branding and 1.3 megapixel front-facing camera. Just under the LG logo, we have 4 capacitive buttons. From left to right, they are Back, Home, Recent Apps, and the Settings button. While it's fairly easy to pull up the recent apps list anyway, I found myself using this button more often than I thought I would. The display on the LG Spectrum 2 is easily one of the most impressive features of the phone. While it isn't a fancy new 1080p screen, images are sharp, colors are vivid, and while the 4.7-inch screen may make the phone a bit large for some people, 720p video looks great on a screen this size. As I mentioned at the top of the review, I wasn't really expecting too much out of the LG Spectrum 2 when it comes to raw performance, but the phone actually performs surprisingly well. A lot of people, myself included, see a dual-core processor and only 1 gig of RAM and think, well yeah, those specs would be great 2 years ago. But in use, the LG Spectrum 2 is quick and responsive. Scrolling through home screens is smooth, apps launch quickly, and the included games play very well without any frame rate hitches or hiccups. The LG Spectrum 2 runs Android 4.0 Ice Cream Sandwich. We'd rather see Jelly Bean, of course, but with so many phones still launching with Ice Cream Sandwich, we're not really too surprised about this one. The interface is skinned over with an LG launcher, but luckily it doesn't seem to negatively impact performance, and it does have one bonus in that it's themable. This turns out to be very handy because the standard theme's background and color choices make it kind of hard to see. Switching to any of the other included themes improves usability big time. The usual suite of Google apps is included, of course, as are a slew of other apps that you may or may not find useful. It seems like LG might have a deal going with Amazon because the Amazon, Kindle, Amazon MP3 apps, as well as the Amazon Audible are all included. Demo versions of a few games, some Verizon apps, and LG's VideoWiz round out the included software. The camera is a standard smartphone camera. Quality is fairly good, and for most people it's enough to be able to replace a point and shoot, but pictures taken aren't going to blow you away. There are a few interesting features, namely an addition from LG that allows you to say cheese to take a photo. This is handy for getting yourself in a group shot or for self-portrait photos, especially since the Spectrum 2 doesn't have a hardware camera button. The LG Spectrum 2 is capable of capturing 1080p video, and it's better in this regard than a lot of its mid-range competitors because the video captured is actually usable. The frame rate is decent, colors aren't washed out, and the image is sharp enough to actually make use of its 1080p resolution. Battery life is fairly good on the LG Spectrum 2 despite the smallish battery. After a day of moderate use on Wi-Fi, 4G LTE, and 3G networks, and leaving the phone off the charger overnight, I found that I still had 38% battery left at the end of the second day. The LG Spectrum 2 supports wireless charging, and my review unit came with a wireless charging pad. This is very cool, or at least it would be if it had actually worked. I don't know if this was a problem with the unit I received, but during my testing, I never managed to get wireless charging working reliably, despite placing the phone on the pad every way I could think of. Sometimes it would charge for a while, so it was clearly working, but after various amounts of time, a message would appear saying that the phone had been removed from the wireless charging pad. I haven't seen this mentioned anywhere else, so I'm going to give the Spectrum 2 the benefit of the doubt and assume that the charging pad I received was simply faulty. In the end, the LG Spectrum 2 is a solid mid-range phone with decent performance and a great screen. There are a few issues, but it's not enough to stop me from giving it a recommendation. Now that's it for our review. Now it's your turn. Have you tried the LG Spectrum 2? If so, let us and everybody else know what you think in the comments below. I'm Chris Wook for Android Authority, and as always, we'd love to hear what you think of this video and other videos on our channel. Thanks.